All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to be bringing you my undefeated hero deck profile from yesterday's tournament I was at. It was 33 players, 4 rounds. I went 3 wins, 0 losses, and 1 draw, and I ended up placing second, although I didn't have an opportunity to play the player who got first for the first place finish due to how tiebreakers and draws work at my locals, and as I'm sure they work at your locals too. So we're just going to get right into it. So we're going to start off with the main deck with the elemental heroes. We have 3 Stratos. I still think you play 3 no matter what. I see some builds that play 2. I understand it. I don't think it's terrible. I just like having that consistency. It's always a good normal summon. We also have 2 Shadow Mist. Once again, this is standard. I really haven't seen anyone playing 1 or playing 3, and I like to play 1 Liquid Soldier. I have not liked Honest Neos in a long time. I'm just excited to be back in this format, so I have made some major additions based on this format that you will see in time. So we're going to move on here, and we're going to go into the Vision Heroes. So you must play 3 Ferris. I've seen some builds cut it down to 2, but to me, this is a card that you always want to see in your opening hand, no matter what. The way you get bodies on board and go into Vion and get a free Foolish Burial, get Polymerization, be able to go into link plays. It's just the main engine of the deck. You need to see 3. You need to have 3. You need to have 1 in your opening hand. I only play 1 increase. I like 1. I think 1 is correct. You really have no reason to be playing 2. It's really not that you can still with cards like A Hero Lives in Fusion Destiny at 3. If you draw it, it's really not the end of the world, and you can still grind with this deck. It's not as good in the grind game as some other decks we're seeing in this metagame. However, I still think you can outgrind, especially if you're only playing 1 poly. You can still outgrind your opponent even with just 1 increase. Also, it can come back if you take damage. So I have gotten into some grind games where it just kept coming back. So that was interesting. And then 2 Vion. I've experimented with 3, but I don't think it's necessary. Obviously, you got the Foolish on summon. You got the soft once per turn of adding Polymerization. It's such an insane card. It gets the body on board. It facilitates all your plays. Moving on, we have the Destiny Heroes. This will be the last of the main deck monsters. We have the 1 Plasma. I love the secret rare tin edition of this card. This card was honestly one of the MVPs yesterday. It just put in absolute work. I mean, this was doing work against Branded. It was doing work against Kashtira. I beat Branded and I beat Kashtira. I also beat Danger Dark World, which was a really interesting deck, and I drew against Evil Eye, which was a really interesting deck that I honestly did not think I would ever see in TCG. I've seen it in Duel Links before, though. Obviously, 2 Malicious. If the card is at 3, we would play 3, maybe one day. We have the Denier, and some people don't main this card, but I think you have to main the Dark Angel. I got to pick up the secret rare at some point. I think you have to main it. Once again, Branded. A lot of people, I've heard people at my local saying they think Branded is the best deck of this format, and it remains to be seen what will be. So I anticipated a lot of Branded. Being able to lock them out of spells, and when they're trying to do something to get rid of Dark Angel by getting another body on board, no matter what deck it is, if they're just normal summoning it, if you have Dark Angel, you have DPE on board, obviously. So then you can just pop it with DPE. It's just this deck raises the seal. This card raises the ceiling of the deck astronomically. Being able to lock your opponent out of spells, it's so good against so many decks. You're also going to see a lot of Runic stuff, Runic Striker, all these different Runic builds popping up this format. There are some decks that Dark Angel isn't good against, but because it's just a one of, you're really not going to see it that much. So we're going to move on here. Also, let me know what you think of Dark Angel in the comments. We're going to get into the spells. Obviously, love that this card's at 3. 3 copies of A Hero Lives. I was trying to pull the ultimate rare from Generation Force, but I didn't get lucky enough. So you just want to be able to start your plays and play through hand traps. I think a lot of people are playing more hand traps this format. Now they don't have to worry about Tear Limit Shizu. I'm so happy that deck is gone. I don't miss it at all, and I never will. I did not play the entire format, which is why I haven't uploaded recently. So yeah, obviously you want to go into Stratos and you want to go into Shadow Mist to search Mask Change to get easy access to Dark Law, which is still just such a good card. Although it's good against Tier Limits, it's good against so many other decks. It's not even funny. This card is ridiculous. This card is also why you can't play stuff like Bestial or something like a Fenrir package in Hero, just because you need to have a clear field. So I love this card. It's awesome. It's one of the best cards in the deck. I would say it's the second best card in the main deck. You activate it, you get a free body, you search, you can do your entire play without your normal summon. And I love this card for playing through hand traps because if they ash it, sometimes you just have another, it's not a once per turn, you can just play it again. If they ash it, it's honestly a bad ash. Like against heroes, you'd probably want to ash Increase or Fusion Destiny. That's usually what I tell people if they ask me. So This card gets all your plays going. Must play at 3. I'm so happy it's at 3. We're now going to get into the next batch of spells. 3 Fusion Destiny, best card in the entire deck. Once again, you get to send Denier and Malicious for free, and you'll see I have more targets for it than DPE. So this card is absolutely amazing. You not only do you get one of your strongest end board pieces, you get an entire play once again without even using your normal summon. There are also easier routes to Darklaw with this card. Obviously, self-explanatory. Best card in the entire deck. Moving on. 3 Mask Change. I've seen some people cut it down to 2, but I'm not going to cut it down to 2, maybe until Wake Up Your Elemental Hero comes out, which I believe it comes out in on March 9th in the TCG and then Maze of Memory set. So I know it's sometime around there. I'm not exactly sure when the set is dropping specifically, but once again, Darklaw and cards like Master Hero Blast, which is spoilers in my extra deck, put in absolute work, and I will get to that when we get to the extra deck, but you just want to see this card. It's not super easy to search. Now, a lot of the time you would, when you're thinking about what your opponent has, if you think they have hand traps, if you know what they're playing, you might want to send the Shadow Mist and use its graveyard effect to search rather than its special summon effect to search Mask Change. So it puts you in a tough spot. So because of that, you just want to see this card as much as possible. Darklaw, being able to floodgate your opponent out of using the graveyard is paramount. That just wins you so many matches on its own. It's good against like so many rogue decks. It's good against basically every deck aside from like Kashtira. So moving on. I have finally cut down Droplet to 2, and that's just for this format. Once again, we have some other board breakers, mainly because I was anticipating seeing Kashtira at my locals. My locals is really competitive. It's once again 33 players. I've seen tournaments where there were somewhere around 50 to 60 players at times. It's absolutely ridiculous. So you're going to want to see Book of Eclipse. It's not just good against Branded too. It's good against decks that don't make Omni Negates. It's same theory behind Evenly Matched, and you get rid of the Zone Lock, obviously, against Shangri-Ira, and you're able to no longer have the lingering effect of the Macrocosmos one. You got the 2 Droplet just because Droplet's good against Rogue, and Droplet helped me out. If I didn't have Droplet against Branded, I would have lost, and I didn't use it in the way you think I would have used it, but I will explain that. I will go over the matchups a little bit at the end of the profile for those who are interested, to not distract from the profile itself. We're going to get into the one-ofs of the spells here. So obviously Poly, I used to play 2, but now we're just playing 1. You got Miracle Fusion, amazing card. You got Rhoda, you have Foolish Burial, and you have Called By. Called By just because we're going to see a resurgence of hand traps this format. I saw people cut it last format, which totally makes sense. But, you know, you want to be able to negate hand traps, and it seems like every deck nowadays, their cards search or do something when they go to the graveyard. So being able to cut them off of a key resource is so good with something like Called By. Obviously, Polymerization, you're searching this with Vion, it's really accessible. Sometimes you even just open it. So when you open it, it's not even a brick. It can, let's say you open it and a Liquid Soldier and a Malicious, so it doesn't seem great, but then you can just fuse those into Sunrise, you get the Liquid Soldier draw 2, and then you have the Malicious live engraved. So Poly it's a versatile card if you know how to use it correctly. Obviously, Miracle Fusion, I have multiple targets for this, which I will go over, and you search it for free with Sunrise. Rhoda and Foolish, once again, you just love seeing these cards. They're limited for a reason, because they just get all your plays going. This is a 1-card Sunrise and Absolute Zero. This can get you Stratos. This can get you Vion. This can get you pretty much anything except for Ferris, Plasma, and Malicious. So we're going to move on to the final section of my deck, which is, of course, the traps. I'm currently maining 2 Rivalry. I understand that it's not good against Kashtira, but is so good against many decks, I think, at least for now, my locals. And keep in mind, this list is not tailored for something like a YCS. This is just the list that's for my locals. I will go over the side deck, of course, but you can give or take the side deck based on what people play at your locals. If your locals is all Kashtira, you could do something differently. If your locals is a bunch of random decks, you could do something differently. So I like this card at 2 because at 3, if you're playing a card at 3, that obviously means, you want to see it in your opening hand. That's the math behind that pillar of deck building, obviously. So with 2 Rivalry, I just feel like you're going to see it sometimes. You're not going to see it every time. So it's good enough where you're not that worried about drawing it going second, but it's still, if you see it, it can be a blowout card. Especially, I love pairing this card with Dark Angel. If I see this card in my hand, I'm immediately going for Dark Angel no matter what, because I just flip this and draw a standby, and they literally can't summon anything that's not a warrior, and they can't use any spells. So that's one of the best win conditions of the hero deck right now. But I think because you don't want to see it all the time because of decks like Kashtira, you don't need to play 3, and I was also cutting space for some other cards. So I'm happy with how it worked out. I always play a 40 card deck. I really don't like going over 40. And to finish the main deck, we just have the 3 imperms. It's just always a good generic hand trap, and it hits a lot more in a more diverse format. So you can imperm a gigantic sprite, you can imperm a sprite sprint, you can imperm a Kashtira unicorn, and that way it turns it off completely, whereas just ashing it will only get rid of the search. It's such a good card. It always will be, and it's not terrible going first either, because with a deck that doesn't end on a lot of negates like Hero, it's nice just tacking on a monster negate to your end board. This card, even though I wasn't really using it going second, it put in work going first in the tournament. There are a lot of interesting game states where I really had to use my experience in the deck to feel it out, and I was able to make the correct plays based on card advantage and the simplified game state, and I'm really happy with how I played. So we're going to get on to the extra deck. So we're going to do the Elemental Heroes first because they're my favorite. We have the Sunrise, obviously, you know, he searches Miracle Fusion. He can easily boost your monsters by like 4, 6, 800. You have access, easy access to different attributes in this deck. Obviously, the main Miracle Fusion target is absolute 0, but I also have a Skurdow because Fusion Destiny, obviously, you're going to want to use the best card in the deck, you know, so it locks you in the dark. So basically, if you need an extra body, or I did a play recently where I was playtesting against my brother, where I was trying to I was stacking Dark Angel to the top of my deck using Denier's Effect, which is interesting because usually you're resetting the Banished Malicious, but I was using Denier's Effect to do that, and I was resetting, Dark Angel because I was out of searches for the turn because I already used Cross Crusader and Shadow Mist. I just didn't have access to any more searching, so I was going to use that. And since I already used Fusion Destiny to bring out DPE, I could only go into Dark Heroes for the rest of the turn. So I Miracle Fused into a Skurdow, and that way I could draw 2, and I drew into the Dark Angel, and I was able to give Dark Angel to my brother, which helped me out because it's good against his deck. So we're going to move on. My favorite card, and maybe the entire deck, is Vision Hero Trinity. This card was an absolute behemoth. It's so good paired with cards like Forbidden Droplet. It can break boards so easily, catches people off guard. People don't even read the card. Just summon Trinity, go battle, and a lot of the time you can just swing for game. It's such a good card. It doesn't come up all the time, but I just love having that option. It opens up different avenues of plays, different lines of plays that can just easily help you snatch a game. And once again, if you shut off their board with Droplet, a lot of the time having their monsters attack with Droplet is enough for a game. This card puts an absolute work against decks like Sword Soul, which I think I'll see. I didn't run into at my last locals, but I expect to see at some point. We're going to move to the Masked Heroes. Obviously, 2 Darklaw. You don't need 3. Darklaw is just possibly the best extra deck card in the entire deck, still, even with decks that don't really care about it, like Kashtira. Acid for, you know, this is going to come up against decks like Labyrinth, decks like Eldlik. We're going to see a lot of Labyrinth this format, so you want to be able to, and obviously, as you know, you want to be able to get rid of back row, and Ab Zero into this is a full board wipe. Blast, like I was talking about earlier, you have Mass Change to dodge things like Valor and Imperm with Stratos. It's just so good. Even one of the Sword Soul target negates. It's just so good for that. Anything that targets, you can get rid of it, and then they just wasted their disruption, and then you just pop off. Having the attack can come up to it, has attack of a monster on summon. Also, paying 500 to bounce a spell trap is so good. I love doing that with this. This card puts in absolute work. It does way more than people think it does. It's a great card, and I do not plan on cutting it. We're going to finish off with Destiny Heroes for the fusion component. One thing, obviously, DP, self-explanatory. Dystopia for time because it burns on summon, you just target Denier. Dangerous for those awkward hands where you want to send a Denier for free to continue your play. And also, Fusion Destiny into Dangerous instead of DPE is aligned to get Darklaw because you can dump Shadow Mist but don't use its effect, and then you still have your normal summon, and you can search out Lucas Soldier with Cross Crusader and revive it to make Darklaw. So when you're playing against a deck where Darklaw will just completely shut them down, you think it's just an absolute blowout against a deck, that's what you would want to do sometimes, and it's more accessible with Fusion Destiny at 3, obviously. Links to Cross Crusader, you know, you want to continue searching, you can bring back DPE, you can bring back Denier, so you can special summon Denier twice in one turn, because you always want to hold its once per duel effect. That's what I always do. Wonder Driver to reset cards, and Dread Decimator to boost everything, and that helped me seal the win against Danger Dark World by boosting everything. So we're going to get into the side deck now. That's the extra deck once again. There are a couple things I would change. Obviously, if you're anticipating a lot of Kashtira, you'd want to double the DPE so they don't rip it with Mind Hacker, or whichever way they're going to do it. So back row removal, we have triple Twin Twister and Harpies. I love this printing of Harpies specifically. It's just, I'm always afraid of losing to cards like Anti-Spell with this deck, and so I really want to be able to deal with those auto win cards like Anti-Spell or any sort of floodgate like there can be. Just having you always, especially with Red Reboot Ban, especially there's going to be cards and decks, even like decks like Branded are ending on some good back row. So you really want to be able to deal with that. So Twin Twisters and Harpies will always be good cards in the side. And this is sort of a flex spot. I had one Dark Ruler in here just for any rogue deck that's ending on Omni Negates and stuff like that. I finally have 3 copies of this card. Evenly is putting in absolute work this format. It's good against pretty much everything. Self-explanatory card. And then you can just go, even though you can OTK with this deck, you just want to have Evenly. You want to be able to get rid of pretty much all their cards except one and then just pop off in main phase 2 and set up your board, and they usually can't recover. It's good against Kashtira. It's good against Branded. This helped me out a lot in game 2 against Branded. So one thing I think is important to discuss for the hero deck is obviously everyone says, oh, it doesn't make any negates, but I think it can survive without negates. I just think the problem is that it's susceptible to losing to board breakers. So the way I'm attempting to solve that problem, at least for the start of this format, is to add pieces to my end board going first that resist board breakers. So 3 Solemn Judgment. Obviously, you just say no to everything. 3-dimensional barriers. These don't deal with board breakers, but it's just a good, it's just a really good going first piece. I could even see this card being on the ban list by the end of this format. Not sure if semi or limited or ban, but we'll see. It's just, it seems like whenever I see this card, it seems like I automatically win that game. It's just, it's good against everything except maybe Fluanderies and just pure link decks, but it's just, I think you have to play that card in the side. I think the side deck cards that are mandatory this format are evenly matched and dimensional barrier. Just being able to shut your opponent off completely is so good. It's like if you see that against Branded, you know you're winning. And then the last side deck card, the final card that deals with board breakers, is a Pointer of the Red Lotus. I could see this card getting banned, honestly. It's basically Trap Dust Shoot, in some ways better because you can rip a spell or trap. I ripped a Unicorn against Kashtira in a simplified game state, so that really helped me out. You just pay 2,000, reveal your entire hand, and then you can just get rid of it. And you have, keep in mind, if you're using this card, you have to have a card in your hand. You can't play your entire hand and use this card. So you have to make sure you have at least one card in your hand. And then you just get rid of their board breaker. Sometimes I remember one match I ended on Dark Claw and DPE, and I set Solemn and I set Red Lotus and pass. And then they had Dark Ruler and they had Evenly, and so I just went draw phase, a Pointer, ripped the Dark Ruler, and then they went battle Evenly, and so I didn't rip the Evenly because I wanted them to waste their battle phase, and then I saw them the Evenly, and so with the draw power with things like Liquid Soldier, it's like you're probably going to see one of those cards. So I love having those options in Hero. You know, I really think it bolsters the deck and solves the main, in my opinion, the main weakness of the deck. Also, I think you don't need to play as many going second cards in Hero. I already have the triple Imperm. I have the 2 Droplet and the 2 Eclipse in main, and I have stuff like Evenly and Back Removal and Dark Ruler in the side. So I think those bases are covered. So the matchups, Branded was really interesting. And what I was saying about Droplet is there was a simplified game state where my opponent was trying to run over Plasma with Lubellion. I had a set Droplet that they obviously didn't know, and I had a Shadow Mist in hand. So they went battle, and then I went 2 damage step, and they thought I was going to drop Honest Neos. But like I said, I don't play that card just because it's kind of bricky. And then I was able to chain Droplet in damage step to get rid of their Lubellion, and then they just couldn't do anything after. So being able to protect the Plasma, that effectively won me that duel, and in turn won me the match. And in the game 2 against that deck, dropping Evenly really hurt them. We were still able to end on Super Poly. I had a feeling they had it because they kept it, whereas they got rid of all their other resources, including a Mirror Jade. So what I did was I went into DPE and I declared DPE to force them to Super Poly it, but I was still going to end on Plasma. And that's how I ended up setting up Plasma. So cards like Plasma and just being able to be aware of back removal and being able to use these board breakers effectively, all of these ideas and all of these strategies were huge in me doing as well as I did in the tournament. I'm really happy with how I did. I don't mind not getting first because I didn't even get to play for first due to the draws. And I'm going to show you guys just a quick little peek at what I got pricing. I got $30 store credit. I was able to get an ultimate rare, Assault Blackwing Rhyperior the Rain Shower. This card reminds me of Duel Links. This card is absolutely beautiful. I didn't even know this card has an ulti just because when this card came out, I wasn't really keeping up with Yu-Gi-Oh! At that point. I took a very long break before I got back into it around this time last year, a little before that. So Blackwings, if you didn't know, are my second favorite deck. So I absolutely love this card. And I don't even think people play this in the modern Blackwing build, but I would like to try it at some point. It's a really interesting deck. And then what you guys are all waiting for, we got ourselves a secret Legendary Collection GX. I still remember when this product came out. Elemental Hero Avion. Beautiful alternate art. Yes, I know a lot of people are going to say they like the original art more, but to each their own. I like both. And I compare it with my Burstina tricks that I picked up in a trade. It was nice, the timing of this tournament in terms of how it worked out. I was still waiting on some cards in the mail, but I was able to pick up my Eclipses. When I got there, I was able to pick up Evenly Matched in a trade, and now I have 3. I was actually playing 2, so I was playing 1 more Dark Ruler than I was because I didn't have the 3rd, but now I have the 3rd, so we're all good. And yeah, it was just iconic, the first 2 Elemental Heroes to appear in the show, if you know, you know. So that was a great tournament overall. I wouldn't really change anything. It's sort of a litmus test seeing how the meta shapes out at my locals. There's a lot of branded, there's going to be some Kashtira, but the deck is just so expensive right now that it dissuades a lot of people from playing it. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, this is my undefeated with 3 wins and 1 draw, obviously, hero deck profile, second place in my locals. I like to think it's a really competitive locals. I've beaten players there like Joe Girolando before who are well decorated players and who at the time of recording this is currently commentating YCS Las Vegas. So that was really cool. That was one of the matchups I won when I got first last July. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave comments and suggestions down below. Let me know what you want to see. I'm not really sure what I want to do with this channel, but the last deck profile just had so much support that I was just really happy with it. So, and I love comments. I love to see what everyone thinks about this deck. I'd be happy to explain more of my lines of play and potentially make combo videos and stuff like that, and just my theories behind the deck. So once again, I appreciate the support, and it's great to be back, and I will see you all in the near future. Take care.